Thank you so much. Wow. This morning when I entered this building, I had some envy of my daughter that is going to the university now, because what an amazing university, what an amazing space, what beauty. It's worth coming down to Lisbon, Carcavelos to look at this amazing university with so much open spaces and rooms in this beautiful room. So congrats to our hosts, first of all. Before introducing my distinguished panelists, let me tell you a very, very brief story. In 2004, I met a guy, an Azorian, amidst a very complex process where I met one of the best jurists of my life. He was in the team. Few people know this. His name is Gianni Infantino. And we were working through complex legislation of EU to assure the recognition of the specificity of sports, to allow the selling of centralization of rights. Diego W., that honors here with his presence from WAF, might tell us some about it. But there was this fellow, this guy coming from the European Professional Leagues, the Director General and CEO, an Azorian, and I'm Portuguese, so it was easy to get acquainted. But the fact is, the first time I heard this guy speaking was about IP. And I was puzzled because IP and sport are my two passions, because they are grounded in the same principle, is fairness, be loyal in the market, loyal in sports. The Greeks even competed naked to show how clean they were. And I was puzzled because nobody spoke about that. And I came to him and said, look, pleased to meet you. You seemed like a kind of priest on the IP rights. And I've been trying to be a priest also, showing that IP is so essential to sports on its sustainability as the creation of the Union of Paris and the creation of the World Commerce Organization was built precisely in the respect of IP. You cannot transfer products from one country to other if you don't respect the IP. And this is the same problem today. So, man, what a ride. 2022, and we are still hearing promises and some guidance. In any case, we have to be all humble. This is a very challenging subject. And for the students that are here, it's probably one of the most promising growing areas within the sports sector. If we had in the Olympics in 1980, 600 million spectators. Now, as Uruguay will tell us better, just let me get closer, we have 4 billion in each event. So this said, my role here is very easy, and I'm just going to pass the baton to one of each of these three great guys. But I want to tell you that when we speak about intellectual property protection, we are speaking about human rights. We are speaking about fairness, about loyalty. This is not a very complex rocket science case. No, it's complex. And so, as every complex subject, in my humble view, and I think the Commission was promising, and I worked in European institutions, and I was very pleased to see how the Commission presented the case. Because I think we share all the same principle, is that we have to be very ambitious in the goals. We have to have a clean hair, and this is one of the major points that Siga has been addressing successfully. But we have to be humble in the process. We have to hear each other, we have to create bridges, and probably instead of creating major legal solutions, going step by step. Jean Monnet taught us so well that, and sometimes we get lost in translation. So, without further ado, and this is to protect me, because once I start having these guys speaking, it will be so easy that I will not need to speak anymore. So, without further ado, not to commit an error here, let me present Gregor Polat. He's the CEO of the Association of Commercial Television and Video on Demand Services in Europe, but he has lots of roles. He is also currently member of the Board of Directors of the European Internet Forum, European Interactive Digital Advertising Alliance, a member of the advisory committee of European, well, I would continue for years, but I would have to do the same with Mark. Be very welcome. A man that worries about the quality of the product, of the viewers, of the spectators, and worries about the people that invest in putting those products online. Mark Lichtenstein, you are a reference in this fight. You are the CEO of Strock, the Right Owner Protected Organization. You are also the chairman of the Ladies PGA Tour, World Tour. You are passionate by sports, and you are, like Emmanuel Macedo Medeiros, a priest, with all due respect, although you are married and beautiful. Your daughter is an amazing champion, follow the surname. Mark will address, as he already pointed out, the question of, are we doing enough? I had already the pleasure and the honor to be in a panel with Diego W., senior expert of media rights at UEFA, and I was astonished. De verdad que fue espectacular. Because it's very clear in the idea. So I'm going just to pass the baton, because UEFA is in the core of all this process. This week we had amazing championship games. Barcelona, Bayern, first half is absolutely incredible. This is so valuable product, people are so eager to continue seeing it, but according to data provided, for instance, in the UK, almost 30% of the product is still viewed by piracy, is still channeled by piracy. The last biggest fight of boxing, of Mayweather, had 3 million viewers without paying. So this is damaging very seriously the product. I would start by you. How do you see, because the previous panel almost took over all. They made the state of play and what is the future. The challenge to you guys is this. Let's make this not an expert debate. Let's do this a teaser for the students, for the public. It is for awareness, to understand the problem and, if possible, point out 1-2 suggestions of how it can improve. What are the main challenges UEFA is facing currently in this area?
Well, thanks. Before I start, I would like to thank Emmanuel and Siga for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. Well, the particular challenge is we are able to invest a lot of money in monitoring our content in several different platforms, but we are not able to remove this in a timely manner, and I don't want to use the expeditiously bit, because this is a little bit controversial. So life is, by definition, the inherent value of our content is in life. Sport even is mainly live. If we are not able to stop our content within the 105 minutes that we have since the kickoff of the match to the final whistle, we are fully suffering the entire damage. A particular challenge is that while the sophistication of the monitoring and the detection activities increase, there are no increasingly effective means of enforcement that are available to us to prevent piracy in the first place. It's been mentioned before that there is a framework, but in my humble opinion, the framework that we have does not fit for purpose, is inadequate for live piracy. I think this is very clear. The notice and takedown mechanism has proven to be very inefficient, and also it's always relied on mutual cooperation. And it's been mentioned, but I think we need to emphasize that behind certain illegal services, it's organized crime. These guys are not doing this just for the sake of sharing content in a garage or something like that. The idea is, there are a lot of companies exploiting the vulnerabilities, the gray areas, every gap that there is in the legislation that allow them to continue to do what they are doing, because they are making a lot of money with this. And that's one of the critical elements. it's never been easier for criminals to get in touch with consumer in a pretended, let's say, victimless way. And I think that's the main challenge, that we are investing a lot in putting in place anti-piracy programs. Industry is speaking more often. We are working as well with the broadcast partners. But technology has a role to play here, but itself alone, unless we have the proper tools and the proper remedies, is not enough to be dealing with live piracy. That again is just something that needs to be remedied in a very, very extremely short period.
Many thanks. We will return to you to wonder why, in a certain way, you feel alone. Because the rule of law, when the rule of law exists, the room for cheaters and criminals shrinks, like in the Far West we saw. Only after the post office and the US Marshals and the FBI. So, and the feeling is that we have people that know what to do, but they feel isolated. So we might need to find strings. Grégoire, you have been amidst these platforms, so you are a man of strings. You are trying to push everyone to the right place. You are a collective entrepreneur in the sense that solutions have to come out of these associations, these platforms. Why is it so slow, or are we being naive?
First of all, thank you very much for the introduction and so many nice words. I feel like I should have invited my parents to come over. But thank you. You've asked many questions, and I want to start with the one that you asked with regard to making it simple and comprehensive, because I think we need to be simple and comprehensive in our approach. We're all Europeans here. We share that identity. The role of I work in Brussels and I see the European Union up front, but I think for everybody who is a European, they look to Europe for comprehensive regional solutions that can unite us and put the value of Europe at a high level, especially in these times when, it's complicated. Everybody is questioning many different things, looking at Europe and looking for solutions. And this is one very tangible area where Europe can prove and show its value by making sure that we address the issues of organized crime, that we ensure that money can stay inside the ecosystem and not only go to the big leagues. I mean, yes, my members are invested and pay huge amounts for licensing prices, and they want to get that value in. But also this money goes to everything that's grassroots, et cetera, which we know has a tremendous value for society, especially after COVID. We just spent 2 years locked up. Everybody wants to go out and enjoy the matches, et cetera. So that's part of actually keeping value into sports, into live events, which is very important. So, of course, we are looking and trying to organize and talk to as many sectors, whether it's myself representing broadcasters and video on demand, or Mark with sports. We also have friends from live performance who look at that from the point of view of you're an opera or you're doing a live music show. You want to be sure that if you digitize that, your revenues come in so you can continue doing these great things. So yes, of course, we have a common call towards Europe. We want Europe to act. There is all of these things are procedural, of course. You have a work program that the Commission draws up every year. And that's what we're looking to do. We're looking, as MEP Frankowski was saying, that the Commission puts that on its work program. And when we see yesterday, for example, at the State of the Union, which is the annual great speech that the President of the European Commission does to the Parliament, that what is going to be in scope for 2023, and we see essentially that the only digital proposals are going to come down to the metaverse. I think the message we want to throw back to the Commission is the metaverse is great, but how about we take care of the real verse right now, like the things that are actually happening in society where we see that there is necessity for action. And I think it's our job as society, as stakeholders, as trade associations in my case, in Mark's case, to call upon, political power and say, hey guys, there is a real issue here. And it's not been a real issue since last month. It's been a real issue for 10 years. So let's get real. And of course, it's not going to be easy. If it were easy, we'd do it by ourselves. And we try as much as we can. But the reality is we need political support. And it's rather uncontroversial. What we're asking for is a regulation with tools, as Jan indicated so well previously, in order to act. And that means actually putting something on the agenda. And that's why we're here today.
Many thanks, Rera, for being very simple in the terms and recalling that this is the priority, is to feel it like a priority. We have good news on both the European Parliament resolution of May, recognition of sport and all that Gregor was talking about, and also the resolution in November, that is even more promising because it appears to wanting to give some concrete steps. We have also the recovery of recognition that IP infringement has to be within the scope of the criminal priorities of the European Union. This is, of course, very important. You have been, along the years, very close and persuasive also before the European Union. You have influenced directly resolutions and decisions of the Commission. So you are a contributor, an active, positive contributor, like Manuel was saying. How do you see now that we are in an emergency situation? Because if we don't put this in the agenda in the next couple of weeks, I would say, we risk staying 3 or 4 years more in the far west. Are you optimistic?
Not particularly at the moment, but firstly, again, wanted to thank Siga for the opportunity to speak here today, but also to the previous roundtable, which I thought was excellent in laying out the issues, both from a technical perspective and a political perspective and a legal perspective. And I think, particularly perhaps for the benefits of some of the students in the room from Nova, who might be a little bit nervous now about what they're letting themselves in for once they leave business school. I just really wanted to go up to 30,000 feet and summarize what I think are the 3 main issues at stake here, the 3 dynamics, if you like, which are stopping us move forward. So the first thing is that the European Commission, and Greg illustrated it again with yesterday's announcement that now we're going to worry about the metaverse before we've sorted out anything else. It's a typical trait, understandable, but a typical trait of the European Commission, that they're always pushing for new things and looking ahead to what's going to happen next and what are we going to do about it and how can we embrace it and get excited about it, which is great, which is fine. But every time we have a technological innovation, there are opportunities, but there are also risks. And whilst the Commission has been very good at pushing the opportunities, it hasn't been very good at covering off the risks. I'll give you an example. We were very supportive of the portability regulation that came into force 5-6 years ago now, which allows digital subscriptions in one member state to be consumed in another member state, which previously wasn't possible. But with that great innovation, you also need some kind of protection for now the wider distribution of this content, the easier ability for pirates to get hold of it and redistribute it. And none of that has happened. So that's really the first dynamic, that with opportunity comes responsibility as well, and that's not really been addressed. The second is the now urgency of this situation, because we've done nothing for 5 years. We've waited patiently. Marco, we know very well, has told us, we need to be patient, and we've been very patient, I think super patient. But now we're running out of patience because, as Thomas Frankowski said, we've got 3 weeks to get something into the work plan if we're going to deal with it in the current Commission. And there seems to be no sense of urgency in the Commission, I have to say. I mean, you heard Marco talking about national solutions, and I'm afraid the time has run out for anything like that. And what What he fails to recognize, well, I think it came out, but every jurisdiction in Europe has a different approach to things like blocking orders. So what works quite well in the UK, former member state, by the way, and maybe in France as well, doesn't work in Germany. Well, Germany's a pretty big player. I think we can all agree in the European Union. So it's just not realistic to think that there's going to be a national-based solution. And even if there was, we don't have the equivalent of the portability regulation for illegal content. So what we need is that if something gets a blocking order in one member state, it instantly applies in every other member state, which doesn't happen. So that is a long-term view of what needs to happen, and we need something immediate. So the bottom line is that right now, we do not have an effective legal remedy, hence the urgency. And the reason for my pessimism right now, Diogo, is that I wasn't particularly encouraged today, but there's any real sense of urgency of getting something in the work plan in the next 3 weeks. But as I tried to point out, and I'm sorry if it went over Marco's head, but there was this announcement yesterday by some of the communication agencies in Europe that because there are no effective legal remedies, they're going to look at using effectively illegal tools to target pirates and use dedicated denial of service attacks on pirate services. Well, okay, that might be effective. I mean, but as I said, this is like firing digital missiles across the criminals rather than finding a legal solution. But the risk, I think, for the Commission is if everybody starts taking the law into their own hands because the Commission has failed to act, that's not going to look very good on their report sheet at the end of this term. So, those are the three things that I see that, three dynamics that have led to this situation. The lack of responsibility for protection of content, the lack of urgency, and the inability to realize that if they don't do something, then somebody else will.
Many thanks, Mark. As always, very clear and striking. I want just to repeat, sense of urgency, work plan, work plan, work plan. What an opportunity the Commission has to introduce the IP protection in the work plan. The new technologies, the innovations is the area of my passion, the protection of human creativity, patents, products, goods, innovation in technology. I've been accompanying very closely the AE, the intellectual intelligence, the artificial intelligence. And you are seated in the front row. You are in the forefront of the best that sport produces, the best that the world has achieved also in terms of human cohesion. And so the spillovers that Grégoire was saying, do you have some idea of what, if the opportunities are greater than the risks in using artificial intelligence to do things like Mark was telling about? So using AI instruments to avoid digital piracy fights, both good guys and bad guys, so like Far West again. Can we do you see a room there for technology to intervene and, for instance, the blockage between countries that we know on the live streaming of major sporting events? How can it work? Or do you see a future there? Or if not, what alternatives do you see more tangible?
Well, I think artificial intelligence and different evolutions of technology has been implemented and put in place by the main anti-piracy service providers that are out there. Let's say it's been a huge progress in terms of identifying the content, fingerprinting the content, watermarking the content, making sure that this is your content, finding it as soon as possible in a very short period of time. The thing is, what do you do when you are able to identify this content? What are you able to do with the identification of the content? So it's been mentioned already about the server blocking orders that UEFA has blocking orders in the UK and Ireland. And it's been proven that it's not rocket science for ISPs to get content block in a dynamic way. It's been proven also in court that this is a way that is demonstrated that it's rock solid. There are no mistakes. And technology is behind this. It's really the rationale that support that we can prove and demonstrate to a judge. We can identify the content, we can prove that this is our content, and we can block it without any risk of overblocking anything. So artificial intelligence, evolution of technology is important. And I think it's been implemented in the monitoring side of things. What we are missing is having more opportunities to, or better tools to enforce the infringement that we are detecting.
And you identify in the market stakeholders that are willing to go with you and to provide more tools, because we read in several experts magazines that are guys creating softwares for monitoring, for proper blockage, etc. We don't manage to deliver, like Mark was saying, because of the legalities, or because of the jurisdiction.
It depends on the actor. There are a lot of companies targeting their services as illegal. You know, certain hosting providers are clearly advertising their services like, you come to me, I will not pay attention to any notice, and a solid, robust provider for your illegal content. So what I mean with this is there are a lot of bad players out there. With those that want to respect the rule of law and that want to cooperate, you know, we X out every single remedy and every single tool that is available to us. We speak with them, we try to coordinate and to collaborate to get the content down as soon as possible. But the problem is with those that don't want to cooperate, that literally ignore every single takedown notice that is sent. And this is the main challenge, how to make, that's why I believe, you know, it's been proposed sometimes MOUs and cooperation. There is no room for cooperation with organized crime because they don't want to cooperate. That's why we need a sector-specific binding legislation that will address this. If we leave this in the hands of cooperation, we are going to be ending up in the same situation in the future. And this matter will be unresolved, as this has been unresolved for the last decade.
Chronically, we have done legislation that is described as too prescriptive by several stakeholders. We continue to see even the Digital Services Act, people think it's too complex. Coming down to practicalities, can't we impede the pop-ups of advertising? Can we punish the advertisers that use these sites? Because they are the nurture, the food of these criminal websites. Can't we do nothing in relation to impeding these sponsors, these pop-ups permanently?
In particular, now that you mentioned the DSA, of course, you know, it helps to have a cleaner online environment. It's better to have it than not to have it, but it doesn't address, you know, the peculiarities, the really specific things that we are facing when it comes to live content. And we cannot trust that a horizontal legislation will be able to address a very particular and tiny and concrete and a specific thing. And there's solutions, you know, that particularly the European Parliament has put on the recommendations in the schedule of the resolution last year. It's the first time, I think, the European Parliament is not just acknowledging that this is an issue, but really recommending things very concrete and very specific. So somehow I think both the industry sport bodies, of course represented by SROC as well, it's the first time I think we all together are coming with a problem, with the solution or with the recommendations. And now it's time basically for action.
This is one thing I like to hear by the Commission, is that now they have defined the problem, which is the first step, like to any cure. I know that you are pressuring me to stop, but you cannot pressure me at that level because we cannot do in 20 minutes what was in 45. And so I'm humbly asking you to patient a couple of minutes because I need to ask for 2 questions. A recent report from Global Innovation Policy Center informs us the following. A recent BBC survey revealed that in the United Kingdom, more than a third English Premier League viewers are watching live matches via unauthorized streaming websites. Frightening how you discuss this within the broadcasters world and what you think as a priority. If you have to say to the minister, now you have to act, you have to do 2 things, what would these 2 things would be?
Well, yes, frightening, but unfortunately nothing new. Nothing new because it has not been on the radar of politicians for a long time because it's deemed to be unsexy, right? It's not an electoral.
How do you
You're not going to be
the sexy
re-elected
thing?
on that issue. So my aim, and unfortunately, as you highlighted, the UK is no longer part of the EU. But if I am in front of European commissioners, the main thing I would tell them is, first of all, this is not a small issue because if you take the cultural and creative sectors, you add sport to that, you're largely in the top 3 sectors in terms of economic output in the European Union. Far ahead of cars. First of all, so just this is not some small piece of the economy. It's one of the top 3 pieces of the economy. The second thing is much of the legislation that's coming out of Brussels always needs everybody to be on board. I mean, this takes 2 to tango. Europe needs us as much as we need Europe. So
Cooperation, stakeholder.
not only that, I'd say to you simply, if you do not act, you turn off people. And this is what's happening increasingly, is that you have the European Union that is running after topics where most people look at it and say, not interested, or this is not my thing. At least for our sector, for many different stakeholders, they look at it and they say, this is not an issue. This is
not the definition of the problem.
This is a problem, a solution looking for a problem. We have a real problem right now, and we want a solution. So, for example, I can give you a very practical thing. We have a whole discussion on the territoriality of rights. Everybody who knows this issue knows very well that the market works. We're delivering. There are new services. Everybody's getting things. But we're still discussing this issue as if it were a priority. That is not the priority of the European Union or of our sectors.
Not the metaverse.
No, our real priority is to deal with, or the metaverse for that matter, our real priority is to deal with this enormous leakage of value, which ends up basically not being reinvested and used by cartels and others to launder their money globally. That's a real issue.
Lincoln said the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I would say that we can adopt the price of having proper environment and sound environment is continuous vigilance. How do we put in the work plan these commands, this invitation to define exactly what are the problems and open a bit the discussion instead of trying to lead an artificial debate? Because we all are in agreement with the basics. How we put this in the work plan and convince the European Commission to take action? 2 minutes, please, 1 minute each, or otherwise I will be shut down.
I think it's very, very simple to me. I mean, what I've really learned through this process is that you're wasting your time trying to explain all the intimate details of these things. It's just politics. So basically, unless you do something, Mr. Commission, we won't do something else. So that really, I mean, I think going back, with the benefit of hindsight, we should have said, we're not going to support this portability regulation unless you put in place something that's going to protect content as well. Otherwise, forget it. And we should do the same with the metaverse.
I'm hopeful. I believe the Commission has good guys there, hearing the citizens. And Diego, so many thanks for the amazing spectacles you are giving and the grassroots development that WEF is. Bravo to the teams there, the work. This is a very sensitive issue for you, of course, for all of us. You have 1 minute, please, to tell what would you choose to say to the guy that holds the pen in the action plan for the European Commission. You have to put this there because
if enough action is taken, smart explain, somebody else will take action. And I think this is going to be we don't want to have this situation. I think Gregory before mentioned we need Europe the same way Europe needs us. And I think we need to have a clean online environment, protecting consumer, protecting the fundamentals and the sports model that is, and the solidarity model where sport is based. If nothing is done in this regard, we fundamentally threaten the viability of sports, and sports playing a significant, a critical role in Europe. So something needs to be done. The remedies that we have in place are not enough. Unless this is really addressed in an appropriate way, we will be in the same situation. And this is going to be very unfortunate, and we don't have the time to be wasting our time.
We cannot afford the luxury to be sitting ducks. So many thanks. Your message, we have to rush. Very important. Grégoire, thank you so much. This is a message to the Commission. This is an area where the EU is able to attain tangible results and to look good to the citizens and to the future. Mark Lichtenstein, always a privilege to be here with you and everywhere with you. You are passionate about my country, Portugal. Be welcome and hope you have always a beautiful stay. Last message, when opportunity is raised, there are also risks that bring responsibility. And this is not a responsibility of the European Commission or any isolated stakeholder. This is a collective responsibility. And this is why, Grégoire, you are so strong in this message. Let's sit down, be humble, very ambitious in changing things, but be humble and discuss what really needs remedy. Many thanks to all, and congratulations once again to Siga, and I pass the baton to who does this far better. Thank you very much.